Hello and welcome to Just Bugs, an appreciation podcast for those oft-ousted creatures we humans call bugs, despite their official classifications. I'm your host, Savana. Today I have Matt with me. Say hi, Matt.
Hi.
And we're going to talk about cicadas. I'd like to start by saying I am not a bugologist, just a bug enthusiast, so please let me know if I have any incorrect information. I did try to make this as correct as possible, but I am open to any suggestions from the audience. I wanted to start off with any stories or memories that you might have about cicadas, Matt.
Well, especially this time of the year, summertime, they seem to be everywhere. Every time I go outside, I just hear that ominous bzzz in the background, and it makes me think of like a horror movie or something, like like a desert scene somewhere. I don't know.
I like it.
Memories of it. Let's see. I think when I was a kid, we had some in the backyard, and my stepdad brought one in to show me, and it was like it's big for a bug. It's like a nickel size or something. I think the one I saw roughly. But man, was that thing loud. It was like the loudest little thing I'd ever seen. And it was really ugly.
No, I think they're cute.
I didn't want to touch it, but I was glad to see it.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit more about why it may have been making that awful sounds later. I do have a similar memory, a little bit different. My cat, when I was growing up, named Puka, had brought one inside in the middle of the night. It was maybe like 2 a.m. and it woke me up because it was making that super loud noise. And I was terrified. I was like, what is that?
Did it bring it like into your bedroom?
Yes. He brought it into the room in the middle of the night and he was like meowing because it got away from him and the cicada was yelling. I just searched all over the room. I picked it up and I brought it outside. It didn't seem too damaged, thankfully, but I was so mad at him.
Yeah, if I was sleeping, that thing would definitely scare me if that was in my room. I'd be like, all lights on now.
All right, so why don't I tell you a little bit about these little critters? So they come from a superfamily all their own called Cicadoidea. Sorry about these scientific pronunciations. I am just guessing.
It sounds like something you could order at Taco Bell. Like, Cicadoidea.
Let me get the Cicadoidea. But yeah, like I said, it's their own super family. There are two like general types of cicadas. There's annual cicadas and periodical cicadas. Annual cicadas have kind of a misnomer. They actually have life cycles that are about 3 to 5 years long, most of which is spent in their nymph phase underground. And then there are the periodical cicadas that have two forms, one that is a 13-year cycle and one that is 17. So there's 4 in the 13-year and 3 in the 17-year cycle.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the ones that you see most often are going to be those annual ones, but the ones that are more interesting, I feel, or at least in my opinion, are the periodical cicadas. They have a couple little differences that I'll be telling you about. So the annual cicadas are found worldwide. They have there's about 3,000 species of cicadas in the world, only 7 of which are those periodical cicadas, and they all reside in the United States.
Okay, so like when they're not, or we can see them, what are they doing and where are they hiding?
Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about that. That's sort of going into like their life stages. So every time, like when an egg hatches, it is on the tree. It turns into what they call a nymph, or it's kind of like a larval phase, but not a larva. They will fall out of the tree, burrow into the ground, and then they live their entire lives until adulthood underground. So they have nymph forms. They look kind of funny. I'll describe them. I don't think you're gonna like it. They have sort of a termite type appearance. Like their faces are like a brownish tan color, and their bodies are sort of like a semi see-through white color, and they have no wings, just legs. So they're kind of like, they look almost like a grub, if you've ever seen a grub before.
Yeah, they're ugly.
Yeah, they're less than adorable, I will say that. But yeah, so when they're in those, for the annuals, the 3 to 5 year cycle, and for the periodicals, the 13 to 17 years, that's all spent underground. So periodicals have like 5 different cycles of like getting a little bit bigger as a nymph underground, and the annuals are like shorter time frames.
Okay, can we like go dig for them or something?
Yeah, if you knew where to look for them, for sure. So all that they need for like food and like resources while they're in that stage is just to be near the roots of like a tree or a bush or a shrub, just some sort of like woody plant, so that they can suck juices out of the roots.
Gross. Do they have like a lot of predators when they're underground? Do they have like birds and stuff or something?
I think the predators are more common for the adults.
Okay.
Yeah, but because underground, they're only going to have to deal with other underground species.
Gotcha.
Unless a bug or like a mammal of some sort digs them up. But they usually stay like 6 to 8 inches down or lower. So it's hard for them to be found, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so when they're in these little stages, we'll start with talking about the periodical ones. They start from like the size of an ant, just like a general ant. They didn't specify what type of ant, because ants actually do come in lots of shapes and sizes as well. But into their adulthood, and adults for the periodical species are usually 1 inch to 1.5 inches in length. And the annuals are a little bit bigger, 2 to 2.5 inches.
Okay, so sorry, I don't mean to derail you with questions.
No, please.
But I was just imagining like them budding from a underground grub into something we can see, like what it.
Yeah, I can go a little bit more into detail about what it's like once they actually emerge, because they do have sort of an in-between phase that they call a teneral phase. Most bugs have these. They will go from the nymph phases. They climb up into the trees. And then they do like a final molt into like their adult form. But when they hit that adult form, they're like a milky white color. They look like an adult, but they're squishier. They don't have that hard out exoskeleton just yet. And they are more susceptible to danger in this form. And then after like 4 to 6 days, they turn into their darker adult color, and they're fully formed adults, and they start doing adult behaviors.
Okay, so they have like a squishy period.
Yes, the squishy period. Yes. Yeah. So during the squishy period, they're up in the trees. They're trying to get food. They're much like less safe, I guess would be a good way to say that. And then they start their adult behaviors once they fully mature after about 4 to 6 days. Gotcha.
And then they have wings and stuff, right?
Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about what they look like. Let me see here. The adults of the periodical cicadas, which are going to have the genus of Magicada, which is kind of fun. They are going to be black, and they have 2 eyes, which are red, and 2 wings with like a very vivid orange vein through the wings. So they look like very interesting, very colorful species. And the annual cicadas range in colors. They can be green, brown, black, and they usually have dark eyes or green eyes.
Well.
Well.
Sounds not attractive, but.
Well, yeah. If you like bugs, they're actually really pretty, but. Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit of the differences between the males and the female species, because I've talked a lot about the differences between the 2 types, but not so much about the differences between male and female, because there are some, and that's pretty common with bugs. The females have sort of a more like pointed, almost like a triangular or like cone-shaped abdomen with something called an ovipositor at the bottom, or ovipositor. What do you think that is? Guess what that is.
I was just imagining an ice cream cone.
Ew, God, no.
Well, you said it was like cone shaped, and then.
Well, it just comes to a point, and at the end of the point is an ovipositor, which is going to be a long. It
sounds like a butthole.
It's not. It's going to sound more like a butthole for a second. It's a long hollow tube at the rear of a female where they like eject their eggs from, but they can place them it's very movable, so they can put eggs into patterns. Yes.
Or they can make pictures with the eggs.
They could, yeah, for sure. So the females actually usually lay eggs in about in a nest of about 20 at a time, and they put them in like a V shape.
Oh, that's cool.
Or actually, it might be a Y shape.
Is it like a Zorro kind of thing? Like they're putting their call sign?
I don't think it's like
a big egg V.
It's a Y, actually. But,
Y.
Sure, like Zorro.
All right.
But what's crazy is when they lay those egg nests of 20, they usually will lay approximately like 600 eggs total. So they do little eggs nests of 20, but they'll do like 30 of them. That's a lot of bug eggs. That's a lot of eggs. Yeah, it's like a lot of bug.
Well, how many dozens of those is that?
That kind of gives you an indication of like how many cicadas are around when these periodical cicadas are out.
That makes sense. You can hear it. It sounds like swarms.
Yeah.
It's like breaking the silence of the desert is just like in the background constantly buzzing.
Yeah, I actually read that they can be up to 1.5 million per acre. Although like for the periodicals, that is like the very much the maximum. Like that's the ceiling for sure. They're more often closer to the tens of hundreds of thousands.
Now that I think of it, I actually saw some a few weeks ago on a tree.
Yeah.
Like they were just chilling there. And I was like, I didn't want to get closer, but I saw them. They just look like tan with. Did they have black eyes or was that?
Yeah, so those are going to be the annual ones.
Gotcha.
The tanner ones, the one that look like kind of brown with the black eyes. Those are the annual cicadas. I wasn't able to find how dense their numbers get, but they're much more frequent than the other ones. But I did read somewhere as just like a fun fact that they can actually cause hearing damage when they get into too high of a quantity. Just because they are so loud and they get into big numbers where it actually the decibels can mess with your hearing.
That sounds like some specific kind of torture. Just catch like thousands of them and like put your head in a box with them or something. Sounds awful.
So you said you saw them at the top of trees. I can tell you a little bit about why that is. So during the reproduction, so after they hit that adult phase, they start to do bug adult behaviors, which is, trying to get a lady.
Smoking cigars.
What? Okay, so once they're matured, the males of each specific species will make a sound that's specific to that species, and they farm. They don't farm. They're not farmers. They're not going around like making vegetables with hoes and stuff. No. They go to the top of the trees and they form large groups called choruses.
Choruses?
I think it's choruses.
That's like music?
Yeah. So they're making their own little songs to try to attract a lady.
Oh, in groups though? In
huge groups, yeah.
So they like get there and they all just buzz until like a swarm of ladies show up?
Yeah, basically.
Oh,
yeah.
boy.
So then the ladies show up because they actually find these congregations like super sexy. They're like, oh yeah, I love those noises those boys are making. So the male, once the females show up, the males start to like fly around in the area, like singing until they find a female to mate with. Of the periodical or magicada species, they have like 3 types of calls. So they have the call to attract the female, like the first song, and then they have the call that they do when they're like gonna get it on. And then there's a third call, which is the alarm call, which is the one that both of us heard in our stories. So that's the I'm in danger call, just warning everybody to get the hell out of there.
Okay. Can you like tell the difference?
I think if you are like a cicada enthusiast and you know these creatures, yeah, for
so
sure.
Like you.
No, I mean like more so than me. Like if you're obsessed with cicadas and you study them, for sure you'd be able to tell like some of the little cadence differences. But
you just walk outside and you listen, you're like, gross.
Gross. Yeah, so that's sort of why they're making those calls. They're trying to warn the other cicadas to just like get out. Like don't be there. It's not safe.
I guess that explains why I only ever like find 1 or 2, maybe because they're like, it's dangerous, go away. I don't know.
Yeah. I think they're not usually too worried about humans unless they're being like physically handled.
That's what I mean, like someone was holding one or something. There was never other ones around.
No, because they'll get
time.
They leave for sure.
Gotcha.
Yep. And then one other thing is that some cicada species, a lot in like Australia and New Zealand will respond to the male's calls with like a timed wing flick. Like they wiggle their wings specifically.
They do seem very twitchy. Like whenever someone was holding them and they're just like constantly like flicking their wings really quickly. Is that how they make the noise, or does it come from?
No, actually. So the noises comes from a little organ in their body called a tympana, which is like it's found inside the abdomen, like underneath the exoskeleton, and it works kind of like an ear. So they can it's tymbals. The tympana is like the ear. They all have it, males and females.
I was like, their ear makes noise.
Well, it's a very similar called organ. So the one that makes the noise is called a timbal, which is cute, like a thimble. But it's found inside of the hollow bodies of the males. The females don't actually have that organ.
Oh, so they don't make noise?
Right. Yeah. So they can only do that wing flick. They don't actually make that big buzzing noise. They have the tympana, which the boys also have, which is like the ear to hear it, but they don't have the noise creating organ.
Gotcha. And so the thing that makes the noise, is it like a vibrating organ, or does it make a sound like I don't know. Does it push air through it? Like,
I don't know the physiology of it. I think it works kind of like a muscle, and it's inside the male's, like, what is that called? Abdomen cavity, which is actually hollow. So it's really good for resonance.
Is it like a flute? Can I pick one up and blow on it to make the noise?
I think maybe you could. I don't really know. I've definitely never tried. I don't know if anybody's tried that. You could give it a shot, see if it gives.
I'm just saying dumb things.
It works. But yeah, that's how they make the noise. Females can't do it, but they do all have the organ to hear it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and
so that's pretty typical, right? Like where like the male will perform some sort of show to attract the females. And then we always think it's like something pretty or cool, and then it's like, oh, that's what it's for. Gross.
Yeah, they're just trying to have sex, really. Yeah. Yep, that's pretty typical. Not just with like bug species, but in a lot of different species types. They do have male specific traditions,
like
motions,
the pretty
noises,
birds,
like the pretty birds,
dance and stuff,
like the birds of paradise or whatever. Yeah,
those are cool.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, they eat the juices from plants. The nymphs eat the root juices, and then the adults actually eat juices from tree branches, twigs, shrubs, any woody vegetation.
Like literally, like they bite into it and then.
Yeah, they just suck it out.
Okay, and then does that like hurt the plants?
No, actually. So they don't actually cause too much damage to the plants. I think if they were in like astronomical numbers, it could do some damage. But as far as I actually did do some looking into environmental dangers, and I found that that somebody said that they were actually helpful for the environment because of the way that they burrow into the ground. They're aerating the soil.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty good for the environment, and they're not doing enough damage to the trees or the woody vegetation to do any serious impactful damage.
Well, good. Mm-hmm. Then I don't have any other reason to not like them other than they're ugly.
They're not ugly. They're so pretty.
Well, I think you're going to find that I feel like every bug is
all the bugs
pretty
are
ugly.
Gross. Yeah.
Except for ladybugs. I can't wait till we talk about a ladybug.
We will talk about
the only time I'll be excited.
I bet I'm going to ruin ladybugs for you.
I'm sure. I'm going to find out something gross of why they're so pretty.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, maybe. It's certainly possible. I did also write down, so the periodical cicadas, the reason I have so much more information about the periodical cicadas is I did find an article from, I only have the website link. It's cicadas.yukon.edu, and it was a study done on the periodical cicadas. So I have a lot more information on them. But they are found to be slower and easier to kill. But because of their life cycles and the way that they burrow underground and are away from predators for so long, it's really hard for any predators to have any serious consequence on their population. So they're not doing any population control over the cicadas.
Gotcha. So the ones that take longer to grow are like more durable, like the ones that are like years.
Yeah, so those are the ones I'm talking about, the periodical. Those are the ones that take 13 to 17 years.
Yeah, those are more durable than
well,
the other ones.
they're slower and easier to kill because they don't have to move as quickly.
Okay, I got it backwards.
Yes, yeah. But they're not the total number of their population is not being affected by predators just because of how long they're underground, where the annual cicadas could be under population control by predators because they spend much less time under the soil.
Gotcha. So is it like, let's say the 17-year ones, is that like every year there's some because 17 years before that they were born, or is it every 17 years we see them?
It's closer to the every 17 years we see them. So they come out, they lay all their eggs, the eggs hatch, the nymphs fall to the ground, they burrow under, they stay there. There are always a couple stragglers that'll come out a couple days early, a couple days late, and it's actually dependent. I think in that study they were saying that they found that the nymphs emerge from the ground when the temperature is like approximately 64 degrees Fahrenheit. And that has to be at that 7 or 8 inch down level. And it has to be during sunset. So they're very specific about when they will, and they don't actually know how long it's been, but it's always in those cycles. That's
really interesting. So like a person may only see them like 5 times in their life if they were looking for them.
Yeah, they're really interesting. I think that's why it's been so difficult to study them, but that's why I found this article so interesting, is because it had so much detail. They spent so much time studying these creatures.
That's super cool. It kind of reminds me of like Jeepers Creepers or something, like every 23 years on the 23rd day or whatever, they come out and
cicadas are like Jeepers Creepers. Just like that guy, for sure. That's hilarious.
I don't have very much bug knowledge, as you might have guessed, so I have to connect things to things I know about.
No, I like it. And you know what? I get it now. I feel like that's a very good synonym. I guess you couldn't call it a synonym.
Comparison.
What would that be? Comparison is good. Well, I think that's all that I have for you on cicadas. Did you have any questions?
I feel like I do. I'm just trying to get some to come to the surface.
Okay, well,
like the cicadas in the dirt.
Oh my gosh.
Can they hurt you?
Oh, good question. Absolutely. So they are not dangerous to people. They don't actually have the anatomy or physiology to bite humans. Like their mouths are not built like that. And they don't have stingers, and they're not poisonous, and they don't carry any known diseases. So the only damage they can do to you is that hearing issue.
Okay, so let's say someone found a crap ton in their backyard.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to worry about, and they shouldn't go spraying them with anything or whatever.
Yeah, they're not going to harm anything. They're not going to harm your trees. They're not going to harm your dog. They're not going to harm you because they're non-toxic. And like mammals are one of their predators. Mammals, birds, spiders, snakes, like just anything that can eat them will eat them, and they're not going to hurt whatever eats them. So
that's good to know, because like I think a lot of people are concerned about their animals, especially when they do something like yours and like bring a random bug in their house, and they're like, is this gonna hurt them? I don't want to go to the vet. It's 2 a.m, you know.
Yeah, no.
So that's good to know.
Yeah, they're not going to hurt anything that tries to eat them. They are incapable of hurting you, sadly for them. That really their only defense mechanism is that loud noise.
I see. All right, well then, to send us off, do you want to say something poetic about them?
I think that they're beautiful.
I do like that they only, the 17-year ones only emerge during a sunset at 64 degrees,
They're
6
so
inches
specific.
below the dirt.
Isn't that like romantic?
Yeah.
I love that.
Specific is romantic, I guess.
No, I think it's very romantic that they have all these rules. It's like sea turtles. Like they just know, and then
turtles have rules too.
Yeah, but we can't get into that. This is a bug podcast. But yeah, I just think that they, as far as like the way that bugs can look, they're very colorful. They have sort of like very large faces, and their bodies go like straight from the face down. And I think that looks very like fluid and very interesting, where a lot of bugs look very segmented. They don't really look super segmented.
So they're more like a head with a body on it than
yeah, and then the wings come right off of like the neck area sort of, and they've got the 6 legs. They're all at the top, and I don't know. They're just really interesting to look at.
Gotcha. Are we going to have anywhere where people can look at some pictures or anything?
Yeah, so I'm going to get the Instagram up and running. Every episode I'll post a picture of the bug that I've talked about that week. I am also planning to get an email going, eventually a Patreon, but not quite ready for that. But I think I want to have my listeners send in their favorite bugs. I love suggestions. I'm all up for that. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm not a professional scientist that studies bugs and I'm an entomologist or anything like that. But I do plan on eventually doing like special episodes where I interview people for that sort of thing. And like I said, yeah, if you have information that I may have gotten wrong or that you just want to add, email me or send it to my Instagram. I'll have those things up soon. I want to hear it. I'm not opposed to that at all.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, thanks for teaching me about cicadas.
Cicadas. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that the listeners enjoyed it too. I find them fascinating, and I hope that you did as well.
I did very much.
Okay, perfect. And like I mentioned during this, I did get all my information from cicadas.uconn.edu. I can post the full citation for that somewhere if necessary. I don't want to plagiarize anybody. A lot of the episodes that I think I'm going to do are going to be more like wiki based, but most of this was from them. So if you want more information, they had a lot more scientific detail that you can go into. I can try to post a link for that on the Instagram photo.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful night. Go look at some bugs.
Go look at some bugs. Don't kill any, though.
Yeah, no squishing bugs.